What if the home you already own could be the beginning of your next investment? Welcome to Club Revenue. I'm your host, Margaux Drake. I founded Club Revenue to be a net worth club for women where we talk about practical ways to build wealth, especially through real estate. Tonight, I am sitting down with longtime friend Heidi Hernandez to talk creative financing, investing, and what may be possible when you know your options. Good evening, Heidi.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
And you have to tell everyone where you are broadcasting from.
I'm in Paonia, Colorado, on the west side of the state. And yeah, I'm from Michigan, but I'm a ways away right now.
So beautiful. Yes.
Thank you.
It's a small world, and
It
we
is.
used to Zoom in together when you were in Hawaii, but it turns out we lived really close, or your family lived really close to me here in Michigan. So we've stayed
Absolutely.
connected. So before we get into financing, tell
Mhm.
us about your own real estate investment journey and how you got started.
Sure. So I think that real estate was part of my story before I really ever became an investor. My first property that I owned was when I was 25 with my ex-husband. The only thing we could afford was a beautiful piece of property. It was 5 acres in Washington, and it was it had a home on it, and it was completely dilapidated. You could not even walk in it. But the property was beautiful. And again, it was in a very expensive market and it was all we could afford. We were young. And we used owner financing because we did not qualify for a traditional mortgage.
Okay.
And luckily, the
So you were
owner,
creative from the beginning.
yeah, the owner allowed that, which was great. And instead of having a wedding, we used our wedding money that our parents gave us as the down payment. So.
So smart, so
I know. So,
and
not that
today back
everyone
then.
should do that, but for us, that was the right choice. And because there was no home on it, we had a school bus that we had renovated that we actually lived in for a number of years with our children on the property just to make it work. And so, yeah,
Creative,
that was the
creative,
beginning.
creative, creative from the beginning.
I think, yeah, and looking at things really, it was creative from the beginning. Partly my mother is wonderful and, pretty conventional conservative Michigan school teacher. My father is a Cuban immigrant and a hustler and just always thinking outside the box and always had a side hustle. And I learned a lot of that from him.
Oh,
So, I got both. I got the balance, which was good. But
so how long you lived there on that property for five, did you
Mhm.
say 5 years?
No, it was 5 acres and
Oh,
gosh, I lived there for probably a little less than 5 years
okay.
until I got divorced and it was a total different story. But took a different path. But it wasn't until 2016 that I developed more of an investor mindset.
Mhm.
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, very cliche, I know, but I read it.
Hey, the principles speak for themselves.
They do. And I read it cover to cover 3 times without getting off the couch.
Oh my gosh.
It was life changing. It was like, so that was like the seed. It was like, oh my gosh, this is my path.
I've never
So
heard that story about Rich Dad Poor
I
Dad.
know.
So of course you are an outlier.
I know. It was pretty, I mean, going back reading it, I'm like, oh wow, this was, it's a great book and it was a little basic, but it was exactly what I needed in that moment. Shortly after I got my real estate license, which took me on another journey. And then shortly after that, my husband and I, my current and forever husband, bought our first home together. That was also in Washington. And that one, um, we lived in as our primary, and we didn't. purchase it with any other intention. It was our forever home. But a year later, we bought a home in Hawaii, an old plantation house. It needed a lot of rehab. We put a lot of sweat and blood and money and tears into that home.
Yes, you did.
It was a short-term rental while we went back and forth to Washington. And so that was kind of my first taste of, having a money producing asset. So that was awesome. And it changed my whole life, really. When we moved to Hawaii, that was why we chose to keep our home in Washington. So we kept that as a short-term rental. At its
Okay, so
height,
you
it
just
was,
flip-flopped. You
we
were stable
did.
one, short-term rental the other,
Yes.
and then you flip-flopped.
Yes.
Mhm.
At its
Okay.
height, it was generating $750 a night, 90% occupancy. It was incredible. Um, and it's interesting because we eventually did sell that house, and it's part of that's like my one property that I'm like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have sold that house. And it's part of why I love helping people strategize to see, there are options. Now that I know what I know about financing, I look back and I think, oh man, yes, we sold it to buy our real estate brokerage, and the equity we had into it was almost to the penny of what we needed to buy our brokerage, which I still own and manage. So it's perfect. But I think I could have kept it and done both had I been a little more strategic, but I didn't have anyone to think about that with, to talk about the options and think creatively with.
You
So,
didn't know that back then.
yeah.
Now you do.
Yeah,
And you're
so
paying
that's
that forward, which is why you are willing to do this with me tonight and
yes,
help people that are watching.
exactly, exactly.
So, one of the things that you've done, which I found so inspiring, is, and I hope the right people hear this, is you've often kept homes instead of automatically selling them. Where did that mindset come from?
So I think it came from a combination of how I was raised in combination with what I learned once I started owning properties and after the rich dad poor dad moment, right? So as I said, my dad was always very entrepreneurial and resourceful, and that in combination with the rich dad poor dad moment and my real estate journey, um, it took me on a journey from just owning something to realizing that the asset could work for me, and that, you know, I experienced it for myself. I had income coming in from these properties, and then it was, I had a taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, as I mentioned, our first home, we kept it as a rental. And once you see that property generating income while someone else is paying down the mortgage, it changes the way you look at moving.
Yes, yes, it
So,
does.
yeah.
So, what do you wish more women would understand about buying their first or next home when, like, what do you hope that they think about and what
Mhm.
they understand? Like, what message do you have for them?
So I think my message would be that I just hope that women could step back and not necessarily think of it as their forever home. Maybe it will be, but also think about how could it work for me later if the chance comes up? Could I rent it later? Is there an ADU? Is there a second space that I could rent? Is this in an area that might make sense to actually rent it or maybe not? Just to think about all of the options and opportunities up front, not making a big plan, but
Mm-hmm.
just, thinking how it could work. And so that for me personally has been a life changer. Like when we buy a primary, we have a buy box. And even though it's our primary, it's like we want a second unit there. Right now we have an old ranch house here in Colorado that's, needs a full rebuild. Luckily, my husband's a builder, but but I lost you there.
Oh,
Sorry.
I can still hear you.
Okay, good.
Yep, you're still there.
Um,
So
yeah,
before
so
we go on, let's just tell people what an ADU is.
yes. So an accessory dwelling unit is called different things in different places. In Hawaii, it's called an ohana unit. I'm sure, a casita in the Southwest.
Mhm.
But what it is just a second living unit, regardless of if it has a kitchen. There's certain financing rules with different products that you have to be mindful of, but that's getting into the weeds.
Yep.
The big picture is that it's something on your property that can help you generate income that helps pay your mortgage. And so even if it's a garage that you rent out to a local craftsman that you don't need, and that person helps pay your mortgage. So it's
Yeah.
just the thinking outside the box about the property itself. Is there a room that has a separate entrance to the outside that could be walled off or just a door locked that can
Mhm.
help you generate income?
Yes, I mean, I've shown homes that were single family residential that were actually zoned duplexes. So it could go
Mhm.
back and all of the utilities were still split. So
Yes.
you could split it back into a duplex. Or I love your idea of thinking creatively about a garage. I
Yeah.
mean, if you could maybe not use your garage and someone can park their extra cars there. That's
Yes.
just, you need special insurance. You have to make sure that everybody it's all covered and insured. But
Hmm.
I love all of the ways that you are very simplistically talking about creating just different streams of income in
Hmm.
creative ways that people may not think.
Yeah, I mean, a home doesn't just have to be a place to live. It can be a stepping stone and an eventual asset long term. So,
So we met through real estate,
mhm.
and have stayed in touch. You were part of a net worth club that I founded or that I started a couple of years ago, before Club RVNU. And now in connected through real estate, but now let's talk about financing.
Hmm.
So what is the name of your company?
So I'm with Expert Home Lending. I'm a mortgage broker. I do,
And a realtor,
and
and
yeah,
you own a brokerage. So you're a
I
broker.
do. Yes, I own a real estate brokerage. We do property management. We have over 55 rentals that we manage that other people own. And then personally, we have our own rental portfolio, and I have a lot of hats.
Well, they're very connected,
They
very,
are.
very connected. And am I correct? So you own the brokerage, but you are also a broker. I remember,
Yep.
right? Yes.
Yep. I'm a real estate broker. I've been
Yes.
a broker for over a decade. In Washington, I was the top selling agent in my zip code, and did a lot of business. And it gave me a lot of experience and also connections with other brokers. And now that I'm on the mortgage side, I'm still doing real estate in Hawaii.
Mhm.
But mostly I'm trying to put most of my energy and time into the mortgage broker gig. And, with all of my real estate connections all over the country, it's been amazing and has been a really great journey.
Yeah. So you let's go down this path. A
Sure.
lot of people assume they have to sell their current home before they can buy another. Is that true?
No, definitely not. And honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons I wish people would talk to a lender, any lender, try to find one that's creative thinking.
Mhm.
But before you make big choices, before you put your house on the market, talk about your options. Even with your realtor, this is a great conversation to have, right? With your clients, thinking about how could I be creative and then getting the lender involved and how can we structure this? So sometimes selling is the right answer, but it isn't always. And so it's so important to have the conversation. And, you can use, depending on the loan type, you can use rental income sometimes from the home you're leaving if you are keeping it as a rental. If you're purchasing a home, say with an ADU, you can
Mhm.
sometimes use a portion of that ADU income, even if it's not rented yet, just the projected income. If you're buying a duplex, same thing, up to 4 units. So there's so many different ways you can structure it in order to be able to sometimes keep that house. And the financing can work depending on what you're purchasing and your scenario. It's always different with everyone, of course, but there are so many more options than people realize. There's alternative loan types and investor loans, and those don't necessarily work for a primary residence, but sometimes they do.
Mhm.
And so it's just really important to have the conversation.
And even first time home buyers, there's so
Yes.
many myths swirling around in their heads
Yes.
that just speaking with a lender could bust those myths and maybe get them into home ownership and maybe their first investment of money sooner rather
Yes.
than later. So,
Yes, I have a fun story. In Hawaii, I just had a closing in July. Sweet young couple in their 20s, first-time home buyers, have worked so hard because the prices are so high there. And, their buy-in cost was almost $700,000 for their first home. However, I found them a home with property with two homes on it. And so we were able to structure the loan using the rental income from the second house to help them qualify because they didn't qualify for a $700,000
mhm.
mortgage without that. And so, it was so special to be able to see them have a rental right out of the gate with their first purchase. And it doesn't always have to happen that way, but that was a spectacular one.
Well, and what a great asset because you have your real estate license, you have a brokerage, you've got your team you can tap, and then you have the financing on top of that. So, are there any creative financing options that you haven't mentioned yet that people are often surprised to learn exist?
So I would just say, I mentioned quite a few, and then that often people who don't fit inside a perfect little W-2 box, which, are quite a few borrowers, that actually there are options for those people. There are bank statement loans, there are investor type loans, DSCR. Sorry, there are
That's okay. Do you want to tell people what DSCR means?
sure, debt service coverage ratio. So basically, the mechanics of the loan are that the lender does not look at the borrower's income. They look at what the house can make. And the lending is all structured around the income that the appraiser says that the house can make. So,
So, you really need a partner in this.
yes. There are so many loan programs, which is amazing right now. Historically, you could not do these types of loans. People like me could never get another house.
Mhm.
So it's incredible. And we have all these tools, and you need someone on your team to be able to help you figure out what boxes you can fit into.
Well, and I think something really important to discuss right now are the interest rates. And I've heard you say that the right financing strategy can matter so much more than simply chasing the lowest rate. And that is such an important thing for people to understand. So give them some context. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Sure. So I always care about the rate. I'm not going to ever tell someone that the rate doesn't matter, but I think people get so focused
Mhm.
on the lowest rate that they lose sight of what they're trying to accomplish. Maybe one strategy allows you to keep another property, but the interest rate is higher. But you have to weigh the whole picture because you are able to keep another asset that has a tenant in it. And so it can get complex. And the
It's looking at
interest,
one data point, like if someone's trying
yes,
to lose weight, just looking at the scale
yes.
number versus all the other data that needs to be considered.
Yes. So I like to zoom out and look at the whole picture. What are you trying to accomplish? How much cash do you have? What assets do you have? What income could the particular property generate? And then, what does this decision allow you to do next? And there's so many pieces that are important to look at. It's a whole equation, and the strategy is, to me, the most important part. The rate, yes, it's important, but it is not the one most important piece of your decision.
It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the
Yep,
whole puzzle.
exactly.
So can you share an example where looking beyond simply that one data point of the rate created an opportunity for someone?
Yes, absolutely. So my primary home in Colorado that we bought, um, we were thinking strategically. There's a little ranch house. We needed to keep some cash back because we needed to finish this house. It's still not done. We need to get it rental ready, hopefully by spring, and it will be a short-term rental. Had we put 20 or 25% down, we wouldn't have had as much cash to put into that house. That also created a situation where the interest rate was higher. Rates also were high when we bought it, and we had to get a bank statement loan, which, does have slightly higher rates. But the big picture was that we could get this property with an 8% rate. Does that make me slightly nauseous when I think about the rate? Yes. Is it forever? No, this is a temporary mortgage. We got this property. It was the one. I'm not going to tell you it's my forever home. Regardless, I have an investment strategy with the house. And as soon as this little ranch house is done, we'll refinance into a lower interest, also long-term loan that fits our lifestyle better. And the short-term rental will pay, at least based on my projections, half of our mortgage payment. So, yeah,
And your property is so lovely. Anytime I
thank
see you
you.
posting pictures of you and your
Thank
family
you.
and the property there, it is so beautiful. So you just made it happen. And then you're using that income. That will factor into your new mortgage. So, right?
Mhm.
That income.
Yes, it can. Um, we're not close enough to refinancing that I even have chosen which loan type we'll
Yeah.
use yet,
And there might be a
because
new loan type.
exactly. By the time we're ready, it's
Yeah.
then I'll strategically think about which product. But yes, we could use some of the rental income. Some lenders and loan types even will allow short-term rental income projections. And so depending on what loan product is best when we're ready, then, that will be amazing. We'll get to, use that for even qualifying too.
Oh, so
Yeah,
good. So inspirational. Okay.
thank you.
So using equity strategically as we're kind of foraying into that conversation, how should someone think about using home equity, for example, through a HELOC or cash out refinance to create another opportunity?
So I think of equity as capital. You could have a lot of equity sitting in a property, and there may be times when using a portion of it makes sense and can help you create another asset or another income stream. That could be using a HELOC for a down payment on an investment property, or using a cash out refinance to fund a renovation. There's so many different times when that could help. You could use some of it to create an ADU on the property you already own. I'm comfortable with leverage when there's a really clear reason behind it and the numbers really make sense. But you have to look at that too. The question is, what am I getting in exchange for this new debt? Because it is debt. And
Mhm.
so, you can never think of it as free money. You're turning the equity into debt, and there has to be a purpose and a plan behind it.
So when would you ever tell someone not to use their equity?
Oh gosh. If the plan only worked if everything went perfectly to plan. The numbers have to make sense. The net benefit you're creating needs to outweigh the risk of taking on that new debt. If there's no reserves at the end of the day, if it creates a monthly payment that's uncomfortable, if it puts your primary home at risk for a speculative investment, there's a lot more, that's a moment to be cautious.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's great, but again, zooming out, looking at the whole picture, asking the really important questions. What are you trying to create? What are your goals? How can you strategically use this equity? And then zooming back in and looking at the payment. Does this make sense? Your whatever you're building with this equity, is it going to cover its own payment plus the HELOC payment?
Mhm.
You just really need to be careful running all the numbers and thinking about it cautiously
Yeah.
because it can be a powerful tool if you use it correctly.
The path is in the math. That's why our
Yes.
colors for revenue are black and white, because numbers are black and white. And even though it's really hard not to get emotional sometimes about real estate, it really should just really boil down to the numbers. So, and that's
100%.
why we need great partners to be able to look at those things and get multiple eyes on performa.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some myths before we wrap up here. Myths that keep people from investing. So, what's the biggest myth you hear from people who want to invest in real estate, but they feel like they're, or they think and or feel that they're not ready?
Mhm. My 24-year-old has grown up with me in real estate, and she says, I'm not wealthy enough. And I'm like, Luna, there are so many strategies. That is the number one myth, I think, in my mind, is that people think you have to be wealthy. You have to have a pile of cash sitting around.
Mhm.
And sometimes that might be true, depending on the situation. But the more important thing is that this can work for normal people, for working class people, for people who, are in a W-2 job and don't have a ton of reserves. There still are financial choices that can be made that can get you there.
Yeah, so it's about partnering with the right people
Yes.
and understanding what your options are, doing
Mhm.
your due diligence, and
Absolutely.
also taking responsibility for those
Yes.
choices, because very few times in life does everything go according to plan. And you have to be resilient and be able to pivot and solve problems. So I think you also have to be committed to
Absolutely.
the process and working through those challenges. And those challenges are there to make you stronger.
Absolutely. Beautifully said.
So, where can people get started? If somebody has a home, some equity, or an idea for an investment, and doesn't know whether it's possible or not, what should they do?
So I would just say speaking with a lender sooner than you think. You might think you need to wait and save and get into a better situation and pay off the credit card or whatever it might be. It's not too early. Talk with a lender. You might realize you're closer than you think. You also might have then a team member in your corner who can help you strategize. Maybe paying off that one credit card isn't the first step. Maybe there's a different first step that you didn't even think about. And so it's just important to find a lender that's, going to bat for you, that's thinking creatively and, can help you look at the whole picture and make a plan. Maybe it's for 6 months from now. Maybe it's for 2 years from now. Whenever that might be, they are there to help you.
So if people want to get a hold of you, follow you on social media, can you tell them where to find you? Because you've got a great mindset. So just following Heidi on social media would be really helpful.
Thank you. I'm at Heidi Hernandez Mortgage on Instagram. I also am on Facebook, Heidi Hernandez. And you can also get my email, text, cell, call me, whatever's easiest for you is perfectly fine. I am licensed in Michigan and would love to have a conversation with any and all of you.
How many states are you licensed in?
So I have Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Texas, and Michigan. So I have
Okay.
6 states. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yes.
Heidi, thank you for lending your expertise to us this evening. The women of Club Revenue give you a huge thank you, and maybe some new members of Club Revenue you've inspired to become members. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I just love every moment that I spend with you, Margaux. You're such a
Likewise,
gem.
likewise. And if you are watching this evening and you would like to join Club Revenue, it's a free, I forgot to mention that in the beginning, it's a free net worth club for women, just helping women with their financial literacy, knowing and tracking their net worth. Go to clubrevenue.com. You can get in on our mastermind tonight at 6:30, and it's unrecorded. It's a safe place for women to come and ask questions and get answers, and it's a fabulous community for wealth building for women. So thank you again, Heidi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Margaux.
Good night.
Good night.